So people in the comment section on these videos are dropping some good thoughts, good bits of information. So we're going to do a few. This will end up getting reassembled to test some other things. But let's measure some stuff real quick. All right. So now this is going to be my particular slide, right? Let's do... The lighting might be a little goofy in this, by the way. But I'll try and pick it up a bit. All right. So about 247, 248, somewhere in there. Okay. Just about 2.5 millimeters on that distance right there for the rail to sit on. Okay. And then we have our FCU here. And now these are crooked, if you didn't know that. They aren't perfectly straight out in the back. The front seem to be more straight out. So let's do this a little crooked, and that's right about 2. I was getting less than that earlier. Yeah, there we go. 1.98. Yep. That looks a little bit over 0.5 millimeter, which doesn't really make a ton of sense, but okay, right around 0.5 millimeter of up and down play. Okay, I did measure it, and I can show it again real quick, but that is only about 1/4 millimeter side to side. But I guess I should probably show that. So let's get those rails. Try and get it as parallel as possible. So 21.76-ish, 75. 22.03. Yeah, so right about 1/4 millimeter of play left and right out of this particular FCU and slide. Other than that, the next big question is the maximum ability for the sear and the striker to contact each other. The maximum amount of their actual contact is only about 1 millimeter. So the maximum contact surface is going to be this shelf right here. All right, so this time I'm measuring it, it's about 1 millimeter, and that's the most precise I have tried to hold that on. So we'll say margin of error, it's about 1 millimeter. Okay. So it's a lot of 1 millimeters stacking up. So 1 millimeter for maximum surface contact, which means if it's even off a little bit, well, guess what? Maybe now it's 0.5 millimeter or 1/4 millimeter, right? Ironically, though, this also only needs to be disengaged 1 millimeter, which I believe I already did in a video. Yep. So that is about 1.05. So those match very closely. The distance for the striker safety to be disengaged to allow the striker to fall, and the surface area, or the surface distance, I guess, for these to be in contact with each other. Alright, I'm going to get this fully assembled and be right back. For simplicity, I just took out the extractor, and the back plate is off still. So we're just going to try and see what all we can see from doing this, if I can even get this together this way. Alright, so that looks silly. But alright, we got this assembled. Yeah, it's not centered on the sear itself, which is alright, I guess, as long as they're fully in contact. But look at how much that rotates. Now, I don't know, obviously, since the back plate is off, if that would reduce the amount that is able to rotate. Okay, so yeah, so under tension, that's not really moving. Okay, that's to be expected. Good. However, It doesn't mean that it wouldn't move over while cycling. Kind of change position a little bit. Like that. Alright, so it does appear, at least on mine, that those do contact each other completely. Okay, so let's put it under tension. Okay, so as you pull, see how that drops? It looks like under that tension, they stay connected all the way through. Okay, so wall, on the wall, beginning to pull, so we start getting that drop there. So that is about 0.5 millimeter of play. A little bit more actually, probably, when you factor in some of these angles on the rails. Look at that, it is holding on by a thread. Keep in mind that is full down. All right, now let me simulate pressing the front of the slide down, which would mean lifting the back up for anyone who's wondering. So finger on trigger, I'm on the wall. I am pulling slide all the way up. Nope. All right, so I'm not pulling on the slide anymore. Just pushing the striker housing down. Start pulling, okay. Nothing. Engaging that. There we go. Just lifting up makes those separate more enough to go. Now, so clearly if this was held farther down like this, there'd be more contact and it would be harder for that to go off. There being room here, that causes some issues. Look at this room down in here between the striker housing and the top of that sear. That's as high as that sear can go, so we have some room. So what we should say the solution isn't to cut some of the shelf off that I've heard some people say to increase the contact area. So what we should do here is raise or build up the sear probably 1/4 millimeter, 0.5 millimeter, maybe somewhere in there. If 0.5 millimeter works, we could do that. That might drastically mess with trigger pull though, so maybe 1/4 mil build up to increase that contact surface and delay that being able to be done. You being able to lift it somewhere in there, right? 1/4 mil might be too much on one gun, 1/4 mil might not be enough on another. So this will just be a game of changing the measurement ever so slightly. These are really, really small tolerances here. But based on this design, like I've said in another video, I don't think my gun will go off. That doesn't mean that there isn't a gun, because this tolerancing issue does seem to be a problem. And I mean, honestly, I'm sure that there's a way that this could go off. Mine just doesn't so happen to be able to. Now, I'm with a lot of you guys who also say, I had this thought for a while too. You know, it's crazy, it's user error. That is every single time I've ever heard of a gun accidentally discharging or uncommanded discharge. It's always finger on the trigger or the user themselves doing something. But we have a handful of cases, admittedly a very, 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 very small percentage, claiming that this is an issue. It is entirely possible that with how loose some of these are, that maybe there's some tolerancing here. I mean, there's 2 little springs holding up the sear into position. What if they're weak over time? What if they came weak from the factory already? Who knows? Or on the lower end of the tolerancing, and it's not pushing it up far enough. What if a tolerance here is a little off, raising that slide up a bit more, right? So lever safety works, and then we get there, and guess what? Sear works, lever safety continues to rise, which if that doesn't tell you something about the timing and design, then I don't know what does. but clearly that means this should not disengage, right? This should not fully disengage, which I will show that again because people have had issues with that, saying that, you know, technically, okay, I'm with you. I'd say the same thing. I did not have any proof or anything showing that it fully disengaged, so we'll do a little laser test because I don't know where my stat caps are, and you know what? Was that loose? Laser. It's visual. Woo. Anyways, I'm going to put the full slide back together because we are going to test throwing in a full mag. So we're going to drop this guy in here. For anyone who knows, these do not come out unless you hit something down. Okay, I mentioned that for one of the next tests that we're going to talk about, but that is going to stay in this whole time. Now, let's show what this does. Okay, there's a little red laser, right? So, little flash of red light. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to show that this does fully disengage that sear safety, doing the little test in the back. To prove this, finger off the trigger, so it will hit the block, there will be no light, right here, so you can see everything. Okay, no light. I'll do it again just in case you missed it. So finger off trigger, this in here. Gosh, how can you still see it? There we go. Okay, no light. Oops. So do this again so you can see the whole situation, whatever. Oh, there we go. Okay, so angle this down so you can see it on the blanket or towel, whatever. All right, wall, not pressing farther, just the wall. See, so that's a problem. Okay, now someone else mentioned test this with a full mag. All right, so to test, these are unprimed cases with no powder, 21 of them. Okay, and so I'm using unprimed cases with 21 in there. Pull that all the way in, or pull it in. So pull that trigger in, and then I didn't move my finger at all, I don't think. I didn't even see it move. That is not locked in all the way. Okay. That's a problem, okay? So let me see if I can get this. Okay, there's that guy. Mag in. That was it. Squishy trigger. So let's do it again. Show I'm not going crazy. I'll also point it down so you can see if the laser goes off or not. So here we go. Laser device is still in there. Nothing's pressing that. In fact, I'll back this out so you can see it just popped out. Mag is out. So mag in. It just went off. So let's put you through a scenario, right? So you're a cop. You just had to fire your gun. You're under a lot of stress. You just shot at someone. You have this thing out, and maybe you don't think about it. You take your finger off the trigger, but you go to reload. You still have one in the pipe. You still have a mag. You're just topping off, right? Because you don't know what's about to happen. And you do this, slam it in, and it goes off. Where's your gun pointing? Who knows? Guess what? It's called stress. You may not think always that, hey, let me follow all the rules, right? I'm fighting for my life. Or how about if you're an officer or military or a civilian even, and you know, you've kind of gone past the, like, I might shoot, right? Not, oh, I haven't made the decision to shoot. You're at that, well, I might be, and I'm going to get there quicker if I need to. What if I'm here, right? What if you're a cop and there's a lot of people nearby and you come here and you get hit? What if someone goes, no, boom, like, hey, don't do that. Put your gun down. Boom. Yeah, they shouldn't do that. Most people probably shouldn't do that, but it could happen, right? Hey, put your gun down. Boom. Goes off without you pulling, right? There are there are actual situations where this is an issue, let alone with it uncommandedly goes off, right? That's a problem. No, I'm not saying that all of these are unsafe. I'm saying that there are situations happening right now that there's been too many for it to be user issue for all of them, right? I'm not going to say they're all uncommanded discharges. I'm not going to say that there wasn't another factor at play, but there's something, okay? So I have found some genuinely concerning things here. Like, for example, that's the wall of the trigger, and I've shown you it is fully disengaged at this point. However, if you keep pulling the trigger, it keeps rotating, meaning that's kind of intended to keep going. In my head, it could just be that, you know what, there's not a reason to stop it intentionally, which could be the case, but this tells me that, hey, they thought through it's going to continue to rise just a little bit, and that's fully disengaged, right? You'd think so. So it seems like there's a timing issue as well. Because look, fully disengaged, but it keeps rising, the sear keeps dropping, and right there is the wall of this thing going off, right? So wall, trigger break, right about there, okay? So literally just increasing some things here and there, decreasing some things here and there, changing a part very slightly. Yeah, there's a lot of wiggle in the gun. It kind of seems intentional. I don't know why. I'm not the guys who did it. I don't know why that was okay. But, so don't come to me being like, well, why would they do that? Or some of you have rightful thought, well, if it was just tighter, wouldn't that fix the issue? Yeah, but here's the problem. There's millions of these out there. You can't just make them tighter. You might be able to shim your specific gun in a way that might work, but then how are you shimming it? Are you sticking something in? What are you doing? It's such a tight tolerance, you know? So, look, again, like I said, I'm just trying to find a solution. There were some things that people said in the comments that were good suggestions. I wanted to try it, you know, the mag under tension. I wanted to measure some of all the internals and how they kind of lined up. I wanted to see how this interacted without the backplate on. You know, things like that. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was enlightening a little bit. If you have a problem with my unprimed cases, tell me about it and how they're not safe and it's not snap caps or my laser training device method. Tell me all the ways I'm wrong. But if you have something genuine to say, to share, to test, some thoughts, leave them in the comment section. I would love to see them. I try to get through them. There's a lot of trolls, so I'm trying to get to the actual meaningful comments. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll try and get this out as soon as I can. Peace.